Yo, I have watched every freaking video. I have watched every single review, all of them. I've read every article. I'm trying to decide whether to buy the FX30 or the Panasonic S5. And I decided, you know what? Nobody can really help me. Or everybody has helped me as much as they can. I need to go out and test some stuff on my own. I got a lot of stuff on my mind. I'm a Sony user. I'm using the a6400. I'm trying to up my game. I need a second camera for a film I'm about to work on. I gotta make a decision. I've been like losing sleep over this. The problem is the two cameras that I'm looking at are gonna cost me almost exactly the same amount of money. And they do different things, but they also do a lot of the same things that I'm looking for in my next camera. And so today, let me not blow myself out here. Today, I'm gonna try to figure out what I should do on my own. So check it out. So I have been torn, like completely torn. Do I buy the Sony FX30 or do I get the Panasonic S5, which caught my eye during this deep dive into the FX30 because I'm about to shoot a film. I need a second camera. I've been working with the Sony a6400 forever, and I love that camera. Like, there's really nothing that I can't do with that camera. I don't really feel like I'm limited, but I'm really interested in 10-bit colors. I'm really interested in better stabilization, for sure. And so there are a couple things that I wanted out of a camera, but I'm not spending $3,500 or $4,000 on an FX30 or an A7S III. And so I started looking at the Panasonic S5 because it seemed like that camera has like everything that an FX3 or an A7S III has, but it's less than $2,000. And it's 10-bit, and it's got great stabilization. It's got a lot going for it. It's got anamorphic support. And so, of course, the big thing is that everybody talks about the autofocus. And so I don't really use autofocus probably, I would say probably 85% of the time that I shoot anything. I use autofocus to kind of lock in the focus, but then I use manual focus and I just lock the camera down because I don't want any pulsing or anything. I don't really trust autofocus. And so I've never really used autofocus in the way most people do. Like even on a gimbal, I kind of like to shoot, you know, I step down my aperture a little bit to like right now I'm shooting an F11. And so do I look in focus? Do I look in focus here? Do I look in focus back here? I mean, that's what I'm testing today. Like, I'm trying to think like if I get the S5, worst case scenario, if the autofocus just absolutely sucks, which I can't imagine. But if it does absolutely suck, and if it's nothing like what I'm used to with the Sony a6400, am I going to have to go through the headache of returning it and all this, and then, you know, go for the FX30? And the thing is about the FX30, I'm not trying to be a DP. I'm not trying to get on a set with 1 million people. Like, it's a true cinema camera, but I'm not sure I need that. I'm like a one-man gang, you know. Even like, you know, the other thing I thought of in terms of getting the S5, the Panasonic, is that I do get called to do documentary work. Like I did a documentary earlier this year. I'm getting ready to do another one next year. And sometimes somebody who hires me might absolutely want 10-bit, might want full frame. And so I'm going to keep my a6400. But I'm thinking if I get this Panasonic S5, I'll have a crop sensor camera, and I'll also have a full frame camera. And there's a lot of great deals for the S5. And so I'm thinking I'll be fully equipped for anything, and I'll be able to complement the work that I do already. I mean, I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to, you know, make the colors and make the shots look the same from the two cameras. I'm not really worried about that. But yeah, so I wanted to do this test today. So right now I'm shooting in manual focus. Okay, I'm shooting at F11. I'm using 16mm, a Sigma 16mm on my a6400. So it's 24mm on a full frame, and I like this focal length. As a matter of fact, if I get the Panasonic, I'm definitely thinking of just having a 24mm lens and a 50mm lens, and that's it. Because I like those two focal lengths. So, you know, if I'm shooting myself, like let's say I'm out and I'm just out, you know, talking in the street or something like that, I also put myself here because I have cars behind me, so there's movement. And so I want to see if I'm in manual focus, do I still look focused here? Like, what does the scene look like if I'm out here? You know, and if I'm talking, and if I have the camera all the way over there. And like, what if I want to shoot myself like, okay, it's well documented on my channel that I shot a film on my cell phone, an award-winning film on an LG V40, and it was unbelievable. And sometimes the cool thing about a cell phone is I was able to hide the phone in certain places and get way far away and get these amazing shots from far away. Like, you know, I put my phone under cars or in cracks of walls and stuff like that, and I was like 2 blocks away sometimes, which I almost got the phone stolen a couple of times too. But I'm wondering if I go like all the way out here, right? Like if I get all the way this far away, even farther, come on, let's get close to these cars. Like what if I come all the way out here? What does this shot look like? You know, is this realistic? Remember, I'm in manual focus still. I'm manually focused. And you know, I'm moving. So how does it look? 24 frames per second. The motion blur is normal. So, you know, manual focus right now. Like obviously, I'm not worried about manually focusing, which I use, like I said, 85% of the time. If I'm close to the subject, if it's B-roll, if it's something where, you know, nothing in the frame is really moving all that much. But what about all this? Like, is this going to be all out of focus right now? I'm at f11. You should be able to pretty much see everything. And so, and this is an incredible lens. So this is my manual focus. Now, let me show you when I come closer to the camera, you know, you'll be able to see me still. And I can focus myself closer so you'll be able to see just me. You know what? I wear glasses, so let me do it like properly. So where am I at? There you go. So now I'm in focus close up, you know, obviously. But when I set that focus far away again, then everything should be in focus, and at f11 I should be cool. And so let's see what happens when I do rely on autofocus, because if I find that I rely on it, even though I might not realize it because I don't use it all the time, but maybe critical autofocus is going to be important to somebody like me who shoots himself all the time. Just, you know, like the reason I'm getting a second camera too is that I want, whoa, bugs right in my eye. I want 2 angles. I feel like it's going to really up the game of my next film, which I'm starting in a couple of months. And so I'm like, I could get another a6400 and have the exact same camera, which I think would be smart just for this film, but as an investment, it's not the smartest thing. Or I could get an a6600, which has stabilization. It's a little bit better, but still not a great investment, I don't think, although I can still use all my own lenses, and I have some great lenses for this camera. I could get an A7S3 if I want to spend $3,500, or an FX3. I can get an A7 IV, which would be full frame, $2,500, but I'd still have to get some lenses, so it's going to cost me $3,500. So yeah, this Panasonic S1, it just sounds so good, like such a good idea. Or of course, I could go for the new FX30, which is another crop sensor camera, but a whole different level from this camera, because this camera is 8-bit, that camera is 10-bit. This camera has no stabilization, that camera has stabilization. I mean, that's really the only 2 things that really make me feel like I'm limited with what I can do. You know, my color grading is becoming much better. I'm growing, and I want to continue to grow. And I guess the dynamic range is much better in that camera as well. Dual ISO. This doesn't have a dual ISO, although here's the thing about 8-bit and 10-bit too, to be really honest. Well, you know what? Let's set this to autofocus and continue this conversation. Here's the thing about 8-bit or 10-bit. You know, you notice sometimes, like when you see something amazing in real life, you're like, oh my God, that was like a movie, you know? I mean, when you go to the movies, you want it to be a movie. You don't want it to be like regular life. You want to be taken away. You want to be transformed. You want to be lifted into some other world, you know? I mean, there are films, of course, that they just want to be like real life, you know what I mean? Like The Godfather or Roma or something like that. You know, Cinema Paradiso, it's just like, this is real life movies, but still, they're movies. There's something about them that's not like real life. And so, think about 8-bit, even though it doesn't have the same dynamic range, and maybe you can't get like all the details, everything in the shadows and everything that's, you know, in the highlights. I mean, I'm standing here today in the middle of the day. I mean, it's an incredibly bright day. I'm shooting an S-Log because I always use S-Log 2 when it's, you know, a shot where I have to get the highlights and the shadows into the shot, and I'm trying to get as much detail as I can. However, sometimes I think it's really cool when you're just exposing for your subject and you might lose most of the shadows. They might just go to black, you know, or maybe you're blowing out, you know, maybe you're in front of a window and you just want to blow it out on purpose. That's okay, and you don't really need dynamic range for that. But the reason I want to get a full frame camera is because I want to have the option. I want to make that decision of whether or not I want to, you know, include all the details, right? So anyway, now we're in autofocus. So let's do the same kind of test. Let's go back here. So, is it keeping me in focus right now? I don't know. I'm turning my back from you, so usually the autofocus only works when it sees my face. And also, I have this set incorrectly actually. I have it set to center, and I should have had it set to wide, but still I'm at f11. So you should be able to see everything. You should be able to see the sky back there through these trees. When the cars are going by, you should be able to see them. I'm here on this little track, which I didn't even know was here, but this is a great place to run. So I will be coming here to run. But anyway, you know, again, what if I'm out here and, you know, I'm just like wanting a scene where I'm moving around. You know, I have things in the background that are maybe making the camera make different kinds of decisions. For autofocus, at least in manual focus, I know what it's going to look like. I can decide, like I can make the decision, okay, I know that's going to be a little out of focus. That's like I can make decisions as to what I want to be out of focus and in focus as well. Sometimes it's really cool to move from out of focus to the focus area as well. But I mean, I'm wondering how this is working right now and if it's following me around. I mean, I'm using a wide angle lens. Can it see my face? Is it following me when I look away like this? You know, what if I came close? You know, what if I'm doing something about mental illness and I'm talking about a fight, you know, and I'm like, you know, like trying to get shots like that? Is it going to follow me? You know, what does it look like when I get real close to the camera? You know what I mean? Like, what's happening? Is it working? Let's put it on manual focus and see how that looks. Different? All right, so I'm back in autofocus now, and so let's finish this conversation. When I look back at this, I'm really curious how it's going to look, and this is going to make my decision as to whether or not I feel confident enough to go get the S5, because the Panasonic S5 is a full frame camera. It's 10-bit 422. I can shoot 60 frames per second in 4K, which I can't do with this camera. These are the things that I wanted to kind of upgrade to, you know, to kind of up my game, to up the possibilities, to give me more possibilities, you know, more decisions that I could make, you know, without the obstacles that this camera has. And again, I don't really feel like, you know, just to make, like, if I wasn't thinking in terms of working for other people, then I probably wouldn't change this camera at all. I would just get another one of these. It's so cheap. But since I do want to kind of work for other people doing documentary work, and also I want to be able to make a film that does not look like, well, you know what? I'm not going to go there. My movie that I shot on an LG V40 looks like a movie. It could be on HBO. That's what I was going for. So, you know, Steven Soderbergh has shot major films on an iPhone 5, I think. Tangerine, which was at Sundance, and I believe it won Sundance, was shot on an iPhone 6, I think. I mean, plenty of people, there's a thing about smartphone filmmaking, so I'm not gonna diss that at all, and I come from that world. But since I've been using this camera, the Sony a6400, with interchangeable lenses, it's like my whole world has expanded and there's no going back. And I'm still gonna use the LG for my next film, because there are, oh shit, what happened? I don't know what happened. Camera just shut off for a minute, so that's a good reason to upgrade too. But anyway, I don't even know what I was talking about right there, because that kind of took me someplace else. I am going to use, oh, no, I know what I was saying. The LG V40, I definitely am going to include it in this film. So I'll have 3 cameras actually, because you know, there are places I can put that phone where I wouldn't be able to put a camera, you know. There are certain looks that I can get with that phone that I can't get with a camera. It's kind of like having an action camera, it's kind of like having a GoPro or something like that. Oh my God, I'm seeing gigantic birds right now, which is so cool. So anyway, let me end this conversation. Should I buy the Sony FX30 or should I buy the Panasonic S5? I'm going to make my decision based on this video, because I have found so many videos that talk so highly about the Panasonic, and of course the Sony is a given. Everybody loves it. Sony is like some kind of cult or club that, you know, I'm a part of actually, because I own a Sony camera, and most of the YouTubers that I follow are Sony. Maybe they knew me. A lot of the YouTubers that I follow who I've learned so much from are Sony users, you know, like FX3, A7S III, Mark Bone, Danny Gewirtz, Gerald Undone, like all these people have Sony cameras. Josh Yo, it's a thing. But this Panasonic camera, it looks like it has so much in it that I feel like I could grow using this camera for years to come. Full frame, I can buy lenses over time. I could start with the 20 to 60 kit lens, which seems to be a really good lens. Maybe get the 50mm f1.8, get a 24mm, and I'll be done for a while. I can get a Rokkor lenses for it. I have 2 vintage lenses that my father used to have, 28mm and an 50mm Minolta lens that I can adapt to that camera, so I'll be good to go. But I want to see what this video today brings me, because if the autofocus is something that I feel like I really have taken for granted, or if, you know, then I'm not going to do it. If I see that when I've been in manual focus here today that it hasn't worked out very well, then I'm kind of afraid to go with the S5, and I think I'll probably just get myself the FX30, because the 10-bit and the stabilization and the price really good, and maybe I'll just sink myself deeper into the APS-C mode. I mean, it really doesn't make that much of a difference at the end of the day, but I do understand that I guess the only downside is that people hiring me, if they absolutely require full frame camera, I just won't be able to take that gig. I'm looking off the camera right now because, oh my God, there's like a gigantic bird flying around here. There must be roadkill someplace near here. So I think I'm going to get out of here because birds kind of scare me. So this is F4. So how does this look if I'm just like, you know, going about my business in my life? You know, what does this scene look like? All the other ones were at F11, so everything should have been in focus pretty much. But now F4. And so, which is really kind of like F5.6 or 6.3 on a full frame camera, right? And I'm still shooting at 16mm on this camera, which is 24mm on a full frame camera. So how does this look F4? Now I'm going to test it with autofocus. So let's check this out. And now we're in autofocus. So F4. So let's say if this makes a difference. Like now, if it puts me in focus, the background will be a lot more blurry when I get closer to the camera. You won't be able to see as clearly behind me. Wow, there's that big bird again. That thing scares me, to be honest with you. I feel like it'll swoop down and take my shit. But anyway, let's see what happens when I walk away from the camera. Come out here, but like normal walk, not like test the camera walk, you know, just like let's see what happens when I just, you know, go about my life. What is the camera? Is it pulsing like crazy? I mean, honestly, I would never use autofocus all the way out here anyway. Who would? That would be crazy. So I'm answering my own questions as I go along, but I am curious to see how far this autofocus actually works, because right now I am probably 10, 20, 30, like at least 50 feet away from the camera. I mean, I'm far away. You'll see how long it takes for me to walk to the camera. And so this is autofocus F4, and the birds have gone away. And so now I'm coming closer. I should be back in focus, 16 millimeters. How does it look? Huh. And actually, the test that I did just before this for the manual focus, I forgot that I put on clear image zoom. So I was actually shooting at 24 millimeters on this camera, but more like 35 millimeters on a full frame camera. So the framing might have looked a little bit different. But I think since it was manual focus, it was kind of the same principle. So how does this look? Autofocus right now, F4. And it should follow me right up to the camera pretty much. And I'm going to shut it off. All right, so to wrap this up, autofocus, manual focus, does it really matter all that much? I mean, I am positive that the Panasonic S5 has much better autofocus than most people say, but I'm also positive that the Sony cameras, like meaning all of them, have much better autofocus than the Panasonic. So as Patrick Tomaso said in some of his, you know, he did a video comparing the S5 to the A7 IV. Sorry. And, you know, he's kind of a hardcore Panasonic user. I get that idea anyway. But he said, hey, if you just want something where you know you could put it there and, you know, make it look at you and have you in focus and everything is cool, go with the Sony. But if you want all of the, you know, pro video capabilities, go with the Panasonic, as long as you're cool with losing the autofocus. Now, again, I'm not a vlogger really. I don't care about walking around with the camera in my hand and talking to you. And besides, if I do that, I'm going to use a wide angle lens. I'm going to manually focus anyway. And so I don't really care about that. But since I do shoot films by myself as me in the movie, autofocus is probably more important to me than I have even realized. But then again, today is going to tell me whether or not that's the case. So FX30, if I need autofocus, S5 if I don't, the bird is back, and let's see what happens. Thanks for watching and putting up with me during this test, and I hope this helps. The reason I did this, I couldn't really find a test that spoke to me. You know, like most of the things that I see on YouTube are kind of way over my head because, first of all, I'm not a photographer, I'm a filmmaker. Second of all, I'm not, you know, working with a crew, and I'm also not trying to be a DP or something like that. Like, first of all, I'm a playwright and I'm a theater artist, but I'm also a filmmaker and I'm doing movies and I'm trying to work professionally, but I'm not necessarily looking for the same things that a lot of people are looking for who shoot weddings, for example, or events, corporate events, things like that. You know, when I shoot a documentary, I pretty much get to make the rules, so to speak. I can do whatever I want. It's my film. So it's kind of like the same thing that I'm doing for myself. You know, but if I'm doing corporate work or weddings or stuff like that, first of all, I have much more responsibility to the client. Because, you know, when I'm doing a documentary, I don't even look at them as a client. Even though I guess the minute you accept money, somebody's a client. But you know what I'm saying? I was looking for a video that was like more specific to what I'm doing. And I think maybe there are a lot of people doing what I'm doing. So I'm hoping that this video helps a lot of people. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, thanks so much. I'll see you later. Peace.